If you're watching this video, you're probably playing a Barbarian, a Whirlwind Barbarian. The problem with playing Whirlwind Barbarian is it doesn't really pop off until the late game. So there's a couple reasons for that. One, Whirlwind Barbarian is completely reliant on generating your shouts to make sure the gameplay flow feels really good. And what that means is you're always running the triple shout setup, your rallying cry, war cry, challenging shout. And in order to get these shouts really going, you really need some cooldown. And for a lot of Whirlwind Barbarian guides, they mention, hey, get these legendary aspects and you're good to go. But you can also roll cooldown reduction on Helmet and Amulet. And it's really important to get it on there to get your shouts at a much lower cooldown, or you're just going to be running out of Fury all the time. Most of the time when you're playing Whirlwind Barbarian, this is what your Fury gauge looks like. But with cooldown reduction and the shout cooldown ring, it's going to feel a lot better. There are also a couple other pieces in the late game that really help you out, such as the Ancestral Chestplate, the Rage of Haragoth, and also some Paragons. So if we look up here, it's Glyph Socket Disembowel, which reduces the cooldown for every bleeding enemy you kill. And this synergizes with our passive in our tree for Whirlwind, where if we're using a slashing weapon, which we are for Whirlwind will inflict 40% of its base damage. If you're using Whirlwind and you notice that your Barbarian is swinging with a bludgeoning weapon, like if he's swinging with the two-handed mace, you can actually just come here, hit S, and then middle click this to change this to a slashing weapon. So this is dual wield, bludgeoning, slicing. So your slicing weapon is slashing, as says here at the top right corner. So that's a few ways to get your cooldown down, to really get your build going. In addition to that, you also want Fury Cost reduction, which this can actually roll on Boots and Amulet. So your Amulet is actually a double whammy. So here, I'm still using a tier 1 Amulet, a lower base. This is the first tier, so this isn't even Sacred or Ancestral. So if your Amulet is, depending on the type of base, whether it's Sacred or Ancestral, you get more stats. So this is 9% Fury Cost reduction. If this was a Sacred Amulet, it'd have a higher Fury Cost reduction and cooldown reduction. You see here for a tier, like a lower tier Amulet, this actually has a really high cooldown reduction base. And it was so hard to find something with cooldown reduction and Fury Cost reduction as well, like in the same item. So this is what I've been rocking with for a while, and I think it's just better than any other alternative. If I find something with higher cooldown, like 20% or something, then I'll switch over to that. Because depending on the process of building your Barbarian, depending on which step you're at the very beginning, you're going to 100% have rage issues. And to solve those rage issues, you need a lot of rage reduction, and you need a lot of cooldown reduction to get your shouts rolling. But as you go on, once you get your ring, once you get into ancestral items, and you have a lot of cooldown reduction, you have a lot of resource generation, which I'll talk about in a second, and resource reduction, then your Fury is going to stay high, and you can kind of forego some of this. So you could go for higher cooldown at the cost of Fury or no Fury reduction on your Amulet. So that's Fury reduction, which can be found on Boots and Amulet. The last thing is Fury generation on your rings. So this is something I actually have not seen until I went into Torment 4. So I haven't seen this before Ancestral items. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone in the chat or in the comments wanna debunk this, but I have not seen this affix right here. Not to be confused with aspect. The affix, which is the sub lines that you see on the item under the resistance, under poison and lightning resistance. 16.9% resource generation. I have not seen this affix before Torment 4, but when you rock a couple of these rings, once you do get some resource generation rings, if you do see it before tier 4, that's gonna really help with your resource generation. When you attack with your basic attack, when you get a couple of these items, you're gonna notice your resource generation go up significantly. So that's a few tips before you get there. There's also some skill trees choices that you can go for. You can increase your maximum Fury. That way when you run into a pack, you have more Fury that you can work around with. It increases your leeway. You can get the Prolific Fury node, which increases your rage generation when you're berserking. Because not only does Berserk give you berserking, you actually get berserking from Warcry. And if you're using Lunging Strike, you also get berserking when you crit with Lunging Strike. Additionally, if you're having rage issues before like your full endgame build comes online, you can run Call of the Ancients and swap out Berserk. Is Wrath of the Berserker is a lot of damage, but ultimately you don't really need it. Because you're going to do a lot of damage with your Whirlwind that you can just run Call of the Ancients. And this node here is the reason you're going to generate a lot of Fury with Call of the Ancients, and that's going to keep your Whirlwind up. So it's up to you whether you want to just spam all your buttons at once, or you want to like spread it out for trash packs to run Call of the Ancients for one pack, and then run some shouts for another pack while your shouts are down. So that's one way to go about it when you're leveling. The main reason this build even does so much damage is because of Unbridled Rage. So you're eating up Fury a lot. And if you're playing a Whirlwind Barb, I recommend to get this ASAP. You're going to notice a significant increase in damage at the cost of Fury generation. Again, if you want to play a Whirlwind Barbarian, I highly recommend playing literally anything else. Get to a later point in the game and respec. But if you still want to play that Whirlwind Barbarian and you want to spin to win all the way up until you even get to that point, then hopefully these tips help you out. But yeah, I just want to put this video out because it's something I noticed, and I actually did not get this shout cost reduction ring until very recently. So before, I was running a build that very heavily reliant on keeping that Fury up without my shouts. But now that I do have this, my Barbarian build I feel is pretty complete. I'm able to run like nightmare dungeons where the mob's like 11 levels higher than me, so it's pretty good. Whirlwind I think is a really good spot. I don't even run the Fury, the Ancient Gloves anymore, because I only had a Sacred version, and then the one thing that's really gonna make your Whirlwind build pop off is when you get plus Whirlwind ranks on your gloves, and then just boost that up. So when you get the Ancestral and you boost it, I think it's upgrade 4 out of 5, and you get an Ancestral pair of gloves that is either +2 or +3, doesn't matter. If it's +2 or +3, when you get 4 out of 5, it becomes +4, and you're going to notice a significant increase in Whirlwind damage. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of a Whirlwind Barbarian, some tips and guides for you guys. Well, hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'm going to make other types of content, but I just wanted to get this out there, because I know some people out there are just struggling with their Whirlwind Barbs, and it's such a strong build, and I also lost all my gold because I was rolling 1 affix on a piece item. Alright, see you guys.